not everything that can be measured matters,
Yes.
and not everything that that matters can be measured.
Can be measured, yeah.
Hello, welcome. In today's session on One2N bits, we are going to talk about DORA metrics. So, Jaideep, what is DORA metrics? When have you heard this term? Can you tell us more?
Well, DORA means DevOps Research and Assessment. This is actually a assessment done by GCP Google Cloud for almost a decade. And they do up a survey for almost 30,000 plus or engineering organization, from startups to big enterprises, teams comprising from less than 10 to hundreds of engineers. And this is a survey report that they actually keep on publishing year on year.
How is that relevant or useful if I'm a startup, or if we are a big enterprise company? At what stage do you think DORA metrics start becoming relevant, or are they just sort of vanity metrics? What's your thought?
I mean, the whole purpose of DORA is actually to compare an engineering organization, because DORA actually categorizes something called as elite teams, good, and then lower than that. As an engineering leader, you probably would like to compare yourself at how you are doing within the other pairs of engineering team across the organization. But the sole intent is not to just have a competition or to actually become the success metric, but just a comparison for you that, hey, how you're engineering as a culture, as an organization, how you are shaping up.
Got it. So every metric that we see can be gamed and will be gamed, right?
So I think before we should actually talk about what are the kind of metrics that
when we say DORA has metrics, what are the metrics that DORA has actually?
Yes. So DORA has 4 metrics that they categorize. First is the deployment frequency. Second is lead time to production, which means that the moment you commit your code, how much time does it take to actually push to production? The third is the error percentage rate, which means that whenever you push, how many errors that you encounter on your production system, right? And final is time to recover. So in case, let's say, there is some kind of an error that has happened on your production system, how much time you are able to fix it. So these are the 4 metrics which actually DORA captures.
I believe recently they also added a reliability related metric, but I think that's time for some other
yes probably I haven't gone through that, but I think these are the 4 metrics that I have been actually reading about.
Got it.
Right.
How do you think these 4 metric really capture? You talked about elite teams and really good engineering culture practices. How do you think these metrics reflect the engineering culture or the practices?
Right. I mean,
on the face of it, these look very simple metric, right? Lead time to recover.
Yeah.
How do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, I usually, again, drawing parallels from observability world, like how you have metrics, you have logs. Metrics just gives you the state of the system, very, very sharp-shooted point in time, right? But if you have to actually underneath and debug your systems, you have to look into your logs, you have to look into your traces. Something similar. These metrics are a good visibility point for your stakeholders, right? Maybe your top management, that, hey, how an engineering team is actually performing. I think I want to shy away from using this word performing, because if that becomes a measure for those engineering team, this is where your Goodhart's loss kicks in. And as you likely to call the Cobra effect, your favorite one. But I think we'll discuss about that. But I think let's actually talk about how does, in a good case, how these metrics actually translate. Right. Now, if you think about the deployment frequency, which means at no point in time engineers should be blocked to deploy their changes to production. Well, this needs to reflect into how your your CI/CD systems are, right? How your feature flag are enabled. What is your branching strategy, right? What is your local development environment, right? Which gives them that ability to do their feedback loops, right? That metric to become successful all in good faith, will reflect that, hey, how are the engineers actually enabled? Do you really follow the platform engineering principle or the internal developer platform practice, which basically translates to how efficiently your engineering teams are able to ship?
So I want to take up first metric, let's say deployment frequency.
Yeah.
If we say I have deployment frequency of 100 deployments per day, do you think it's good or bad, or like, am I elite now? What would take me to be elite? How does DORA categorize?
Yeah. So this is my favorite actually code, right? Okay. When I think about it, it is like, your body metrics or your body vitals. If you're saying that, hey, this is only just my blood pressure, but what is my heart rate? What is my body fat percentage? All of it, this when combined actually starts making sense, right? So you cannot look at just deployment frequency in isolation, which means that if you have a very high deployment frequency, but all your other metrics are lagging, well, you're not. I just want to give you an anecdote. I think at one of our customers, they have around 2,500 deployments in a month. If you break down 20 working days, 8 hours, you can just do the math here, right? We're talking close to 100 deployments in a day.
Yeah, 100, 200 almost.
Almost 200, yeah. Thanks for fixing it, Chinmay. But on the other side, when we actually started doing up a lot of discovery and talking to their engineering team, their other metrics were really, really far away because their lead time to deploy to production was in months, right? Then their error rate was high because at one point in time, we just paired program with one of their engineers. And during that time, that deployment failed. Can you imagine? Right?
Yeah. So it's a classic. Okay, got it.
Right.
So idea is we cannot look at just one metrics in isolation. We have to look at all of the effects of all of the metrics.
Yep.
And are there any things that you think that are important beyond these 4 metrics?
I think.
And how would somebody measure that, or how would somebody think about it? Because other idea is if you can't measure it, you can't fix it.
I think you know this better, right? Let me give you this example. If I have a 90% test coverage, do you think that my software quality is really good?
No way to tell. No way to tell.
Exactly. Right?
Because I could always be writing assert 1 equal to 1 and my test case will pass. I can always call the code, but the quality aspect is hard to judge. Okay, fair enough. I get your case.
Exactly. But similarly, in DORA metrics, what is the value to your users, to your business? That is more important. If your value to your business is not really there, because it doesn't capture that. The whole idea is for the engineering teams to showcase that, hey, where we are, what we are doing, just a measurement. But if you're saying that, hey, what it is impacting, this is not actually captured by DORA.
So one way to say, is it a good way to capture it, the essence, right? One is people come to us for, we want to improve our reliability, right? But the first question that we ask people is, do you even know what is your uptime?
Yes.
Like, are you even measuring?
Yes.
Are you 2 nines, 95, 99, 3 nines, whatever?
Yeah.
So is it fair to say that DORA metrics help you first capture what you have? Like it puts a pin in there and saying, look, you're here. Now let's see how you can kind of improve. The first step is to measure.
Yes.
Because again, there are some orgs that we've worked with or we know, nobody knows how many deployments they do per day, or they don't even know if there are failures. They just deal with it on the fly. Right?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the engineering leaders who call us, they probably are struggling with not so good engineering practices. Let me actually call this out. Good engineering teams. In fact, in the initial days of my engineering career, I never even cared about it. I was very skeptical about it. Why do you even have to have these metrics? But again, while I'm on the other side, actually talking to a lot of technical leadership, and I understand and I have empathy for them when they say that, hey, is there a way to actually quantify it? That's the only way, because if they are not into the mechanics of the day in, day out, that probably is just a reflection of the engineering quality. That can be, right? Right.
So essentially what you're getting at is DORA metrics there are two camps. One is the DevOps or the SRE team,
Mm-hmm.
the way they will view about these, how they view these metrics,
Mm.
and there is engineering management or
Mm.
director of engineering or VP of engineering.
Yep.
They trying to look at these metrics, saying how are we doing as a team or as a company overall.
Yes.
How do you see? Do these camps have same alignment? Do you see any issues with alignment? How should they think about it?
So if you think more from an engineer's perspective, engineers should actually just keep on focusing on good engineering practices. I think they should not be looking at just the DORA metrics, because at times not every engineer in the team is even aware about their DORA metrics. Let me call this out. Like for the engineering teams, with great engineering teams, or even engineering teams which are trying to be elite or improve their overall engineering practices, an engineer on the ground doesn't know about it. I think it is just for the engineering leaders to actually give visibility to their top management or stakeholders that how we are actually performing. And in case, right, even if they have to make a case for themselves that, look, we really need help. Now, it can be of multiple reasons. One reason could be legacy system, money-making businesses, where they have been acquiring businesses and trying to do mergers over the period of time. uh, they may have inculcated a lot of technical debt, right? So in those scenarios, it becomes a good way to actually call it out and have a good negotiation for technical debts.
Got it. So maybe one question on DORA itself. What we talked about, what it measures, the deployment frequency and the rest of the three metrics. What does it not measure?
So as I said, that probably one thing is the value to the business. How is the user experience, right? What does the product manager actually think about it, right? A lot of these times, the what people actually end up doing is doing up a measurement theater. It becomes more theatrics and optics rather than actually focusing on the engineering practices itself. Because I've seen engineering teams where DORA becomes the prima facie, that they are actually focusing on the metrics itself rather than focusing on their engineering practices.
So kind of like not everything that can be measured matters, and not everything that matters can be measured.
Yeah, it's a nice tongue twister.
So I think there's a last point from a senior technical leader point of view. Uh, what are some caveats that I should like? I get that we should probably measure DORA metrics for our teams, and what are some caveats to consider when I go down this path and the journey? What has your experience been working with many customers? What have you seen?
Yeah, I think I think the whole purpose of the DORA metrics, as we already discussed, is for giving some visibility. But the other thing is that let's not actually just focus on gaming those metrics. Example, if I want to increase my deployment frequency, right? I want to do that, but probably I'm not even shipping my complete features, right? That is one way. Second is I want to reduce my change error rate, but basically I'm not being innovative about these things, and I'm not actually thinking how can I add some value to my users, which may require some innovations, right? Uh, third could be like, just because I'm really wary about it, I don't want to deploy at that frequency, because I have always the fear that what happens if it breaks. If this whole philosophy, ship fast, break fast, we do not get into this mode. That's the whole purpose of having a continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines. But if you're not able to do that, and you're only focusing on those metrics, because team is actually judged based on those metrics, that's a you're actually going
You're setting up yourself
for a disaster.
That was a great conversation, Jaideep. Thanks for that. We will be publishing a blog on this soon, so
And a case
watch
study?
out. Yes, and a case study. So watch out for this space.
Thank you.